Alright, now we can slice the garlic. When it gets small enough, we don't really need to dice this up because again this is just going in a broth, we're not actually eating the garlic. So that's about chopped fine enough. Now we can go ahead in this recipe, and I'd just like to acknowledge credit that I got this recipe off bonappetit.com by a chef. Her name is Carla Lally Music, and I've adapted the recipe just a little bit so it's not exactly as it was on the website. So this recipe calls for 1 tablespoon of oil. So I'm going to place the oil in the EPPC, or the pressure cooker. And there is a setting for saute, so I'm going to hit that. It's important to leave, I stress that we leave the lid off for saute. If you leave it on, it gets too hot and there's no water to actually pressure cook. So for this saute part of this recipe, we're going to leave the lid off and give it a few minutes to heat up. And while that's going on, we can chop our other vegetables. So we're going to use 2 carrots. And we can cut off the ends. I think I should use mine. Okay, and I usually cut, I'll line up my carrots and then cut them at the same time, just to make it a little quicker. And I'm cutting them about, I'd say, a 1/4 of an inch thick, although, again, I'm just cutting them into smaller bits so that they cook better in the soup. Instead of just throwing a whole carrot in, cutting them up will increase their surface area and you'll get more flavor out of it than if you were to put it in whole. And it calls for 2 stalks of celery. While that's going on, this pressure cooker only takes a few minutes to get going, so I'm going to throw in the onions. Now the onions are going to cook for about 3 minutes by themselves. And I actually forgot my ladle, so I'm going to do the ladle. Mix it every so often. I'm going to start throwing my other vegetables into the bowl. They're going to go in at the same time. And this is just to make room on my cutting board. So for my celery stalks, I cut off the ends on both sides. chop them into about 1-inch long pieces. Then we use about a cup of parsley, and now's a good time to check again on the onions. I have a measuring cup here. And this is actually for 2/3 of the cup, so I'm going to use a little bit more. And that's good. And parsley is actually easier to chop when it's dry. So if you want to wash it after cutting and put it in a colander, and if you want to cut it first while it's dry and then put it in a colander and wash it, that might be an easier method to take. And that's the method I usually use. These are pre-washed though, and I've just set them out to dry. Okay, I'll chop my parsley. My onions are looking good. They're starting to brown on some of their sides. In about 3 minutes, I'm going to toss my other vegetables in. And I actually forgot my mushrooms. So on her recipe, she says that any large mushrooms can get cut in half. I think I'll follow those directions. And the smaller ones can get tossed in whole. And then these are going to cook for about 5 minutes total. Occasional stirring.